This is Dr. Ted Caleris, Superintendent of the Brooklyn City School District. I am honored to have Senator Tom Patton with us this morning. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Ted.
Good morning. So today's just an opportunity for us. You represent Brooklyn and our school district, and today this is really just to get a chance to talk to you about what's going on in your world. The complicated role of state legislatures and really just the connection with education. So I'll start off with an easy one. Introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you represent, and really, Senator Patton, I think it's important, like what inspired you to run for office.
Again, my name is Tom Patton. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. Came from a big Irish Catholic family. I was the sixth of nine. I had 6 children. I lost my wife at a young age, but those 6 kids have been able to give me 10 grandkids, which is God's reward for not killing your kids when they're growing up, is what I often say. But this is kind of like my second career. I had my brother Sharon. I had an IBM dealership for 24 years, and from 74 to 98. And then one day his wife woke up and she didn't want to be married anymore, so she wanted to cash out of her shares. So we sold to a company called Blue Technologies, and I've been a consultant to them for 28 years. And that kind of gave me the opportunity when people approached me about running. For a year and a couple months, I kept saying, I've got 6 kids and 3 jobs. I can't do this. But then 9/11 happened, and 9/11. My father flew in B-24s. My older brother Terry was in Vietnam. My dad became a police detective. My older brother Timmy, a homicide detective. And I was thinking at 48, what have I done? And we didn't know there wouldn't be a 9/12 or a 10/11.
Yeah.
And so I went back to the people that asked me to run, and I said, tell me more about this job. And I'm holding up 3 fingers, but they tell me you're in Columbus 2 days a week, but it's every bit of 3 for the most part. And but it's something that I've enjoyed much more than I thought. There's times you're frustrated. There's certain things you wish you can get done. But, there's 33 senators there, and each Senate district has 3 state reps, so there's 99 of those. And to make a bill, and again, it's never easy, nor do I think it should be. You shouldn't be able to pass bills willy-nilly. They should be vetted out. And so the bill can begin in the House, or it can begin in the Senate, but when it gets through that chamber, if it goes through the committee process, and leadership thinks it's a good enough vote, you vote it out of committee and they take it to the floor, and you have the opportunity to amend, vote, pass the bill. Then it goes to the other chamber and it all starts all over again, hearings, sponsor testimony. And if that passes and they both agree, then the bill goes to the governor, he signs it or vetoes it. So it's a real collaborative process.
I hope all our government students are listening right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, it's civics 101.
Right.
But as I say, when people say this is, I always joke that we could come up for a cure for a crazy disease and it would still take us 9 months to get it out because of all the hoops that we have to, and we should jump through. I just take a look at our colleagues in Washington, D.C., and it's the frustration they must feel because they can get nothing done. And it's been a long time since they've been able to really work in a collaborative
I will
fashion.
tell you, in my role as superintendent, next year will be my 7th year as superintendent, and the amount that I've learned in terms of the legislative process has been immense just in this role in terms of how state laws impact school districts, both public and private. Tell us a little about who do you represent? I mean, I think that's important for everybody to know. Who do you represent?
Over the years, because this is my 24th year, over the years I've represented virtually almost every suburb in both the east and west side when I was in the Senate last time. And now I went as far out as like Mayfield Heights and Hunting Valley and Solon, and now I've had as far north as Westlake, Rocky River. But currently today, if you started, and I'm just going to go north, Olmsted Township, Olmsted Falls, Berea, Middleburg Heights, Brook Park, Strongsville, North Royalton, Broadview Heights. We have Parma, we have Parma Heights, we have Brooklyn, of course. We have Old Brooklyn, we have parts towards 14, 15, 16 in West Park, about 400,000 people.
How do you stay connected with such a large geographical area? I mean, because that you're and to also such a diverse group of communities, right? You're going from Cleveland all the way to, like, how do you stay connected and how do you stay, in the know of what they need in those communities?
Well, first of all, I'm handing this to you
Yes,
now. For
thank
your
you.
listeners can't see that, but you'll notice I put my cell phone
Yeah.
on every one of my business cards, and none of my colleagues do that. They always question that, and I say, no, if somebody has a problem, I want to find out about it right away. 'Cause
Yeah.
the quicker you hear about it, the quicker you might be able to fix it.
Just
The
had that
longer it sits-
conversation the other day.
Sure. So
Right.
especially in your position. So, but I try to work with my mayors, and you know, they're actually, and school superintendents, to a certain degree. You have to try to find out what their goals, what their aims are,
Yeah.
where you think the state might be able to come in and help out. But there's areas where the state might not be able to help out.
Yeah.
Here's a great example: is this talk about getting rid of the property tax.
Yeah.
That sounds like such a great idea. The idea of walking in the door and being able to circle a box and you never have to pay the thousands of dollars a year that you're paying for your property taxes.
Right.
The state of Ohio, through their 88 counties, taken $24 billion in property tax, and every single nickel of the property tax stays within the county that it's collected in. So none of the Cuyahoga County money will go to Lake or Lorraine or Franklin and Columbus.
Stays-
The
stays
state
home.
doesn't get any. It all
Yeah.
stays home. But then what does it pay for? Because there's no
Pays
such
for a
thing
lot.
as a free lunch. You've got your school share of school funding, which is
right.
critical. That's the first thing. You have your police, you have fire, you have EMS, you have your libraries, you have your portion of the metro parks,
Community services.
MRDD
Yes.
services. I mean, it just, the list goes on, and people see it on their card. And there's a guy, and I'm sorry, I don't usually term knucklehead, but there's a guy out in Lake County that's a commissioner that continues to say, oh, don't worry, the state can take care of it.
Right.
And here's a real easy math problem that we can all solve. The state takes in $30 billion a year in income tax and sales tax. And we get $4 billion in ancillary funding from the feds.
Right.
K through 12 alone is 13.7 per year. All right, out of 34. Medicaid's more than that. I don't have a number on it, but
Yeah,
it's about
gotcha.
16, 17.
Sure.
And then higher education is 11% of the budget. Prisons is 9% of the budget. And that always scares me because I think when you have 11%, 9%, you're looking at that spreadsheet. What if it inverts? What if suddenly you're paying more for prisons than you are higher education?
It's a big deal.
And that's a challenge. And then, first of all, the gas tax, which I haven't mentioned, I want to make sure that's clear. We take in several $billion in gas tax, but by Constitution, all the gas tax money has to go to roads and bridges.
Sure.
And as a matter of fact, there's only one state in the union that has more bridges than Ohio, and nobody ever guesses. I always tell people, I'll buy you a tank of gas if you can pick it up. And I see you pausing trying to.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
People guess Pennsylvania, they guess Minnesota, land of 1,000 lakes and things, but it's Texas.
Oh.
But the difference between Ohio bridges and Texas bridges, we salt our bridges in wintertime. We throw salt brine and they erode. You have about a 20-year life expectancy before you have to redeck and sandblast, and our brave folks, that's a dirty, filthy job. But it's dominated by a good group of guys and gals that take that on as a vocation. And so...
Our maintenance is more than theirs
yeah.
because we have to account for the weather piece.
And exactly.
Yeah.
And so, it's, so when people, I've been asked a few times to sign that for us. I said, I'll sign it the moment you tell me we're going to get $24 billion. And then don't tell me the state, because the state has, as they say, finite resources. We're not like federal government. They just keep printing out and our national debt keeps growing, which scares the heck out of the grandfather of 10 that I am. What am I giving my grandchildren? Right now, there's every American owes about $125,000 towards the national debt. And that's just a terrible legacy. But back to the school funding issue. This is something that the Duralf decision, like in 1990, they came out and said, it's unconstitutional to use property taxes to fund schools in rural and farmlands, period. Mm-hmm. The next sentence said, however, we do believe the property tax is the most effective and efficient means by which to fund schools in urban and suburban areas. Their thought was, and they said, I think it went on to say, due to the massive land value, the limited number of students, that's why it wasn't fair to the farmers to use the property tax. And yet we have not really found a better way. The state of Ohio spends $15,000 on average for high school students.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, certain suburbs like Berea will not probably get 15, but yet cities like Cleveland or Cincinnati will get much more than that. But it's all a question of trying to, there's formulas. There's also every district is established in a different way, and I remember when the lottery came out when I was a much younger man. I wasn't certainly in politics, but the late Ron Model was, he's the one that pushed it, and he said this will help with school funding, and we bring in about $1.2 billion from the lottery. That's part of the 13.7 that goes to funding schools, but it's not we have the solution to fund everything in schools. We're just going to do it on the lottery basis. And again, it's a tool in the toolbox, but it's not the solution. We're always looking for ways.
One of the things that I've noticed as superintendent over the last, I'll just say 3 to 4 years, is it appears that there's a bit of a disconnect between, I'll just make very general, public schools and some of the public school districts and the philosophy at the legislative level in terms of how to fund schools, be either private or either private or public. What do you see as a solution moving forward? With regarding funding either public schools or private schools, because I know that's a hotly contested issue with the vouchers, and that's not the purpose of this conversation. But what do you see as a solution? Because I think as a superintendent, what I always want to do is, and thus I will say to everybody listening, I invited both Representative Glassburn, who represents Brooklyn, and Senator Patton, and both, thus Senator Patton be here, responded immediately and was very forthcoming and wanted to be part of this. And so from my perspective as school superintendent, that says tremendous things that Senator Patton's here and he wants to be a partner with us. But what do you think from your perspective is that solution? Again, very complex. How do we fund those school districts, and what does that look like for you?
Well, last year, in the last budget, we actually added $1 billion to K through 12, and that took it up to 13.7. And when you look at the voucher program, actually began when Frank Jackson was mayor. Yeah. Community leaders such as Albert Ratner and others were like pushing for what they called the Cleveland Plan, and so the Cleveland Plan began in such a way that they offered school choice, and certainly a lot of the Catholic families did, but this was the challenge, is the idea that a West Side Cleveland kid, Cleveland boy rather, that wanted to go to a Catholic high school under the Cleveland Plan could go to St. Ignatius, and they could go to Benedictine or Central Catholic Slavic Village. And candidly, from West Park to Ignatius wasn't bad, but it was 3 bus rides away to Benedictine, 3 bus rides away, or some people would joke just a simple bus ride to St. John Marshall, which obviously is the same.
I'm a lawyer.
Yes, and so last year, I think when we then under the leadership of former Senate President and now current House Speaker Matt Huffman, he wanted to expand the Cleveland Plan into kind of the whole statewide thing. And I was worried about that for lots of reasons, but this is how it was explained to me. If we give if we pay in $15,000 on average per high school kid, but some family takes $8,300, which is the highest voucher amount. Again, your income, the higher your income, the lower that amount goes. Sure. But if they take $8,300 and go to a Catholic school versus stay in public school and cost $15,000, someone could argue, well, didn't you just save $7,000 thereabouts? But again, as a product of the Cleveland Public School System and West Tech High School, as I had mentioned earlier to you offline, if you're in Cleveland Public Schools today and you're in 8th grade, you have a 38% chance of graduating.
Sure.
All right. Now, if you or I had to have kidney surgery, and we found out Dr. Smith was our doctor, and somehow, someway, we found out Dr. Smith was successful on 38% of his cases, we'd be looking for Dr. Jones really quick. Even if he was out of network, we would search for that. And you know, and the problem is in some of the, and it's not just Cleveland. You take a look at it's an inner city dilemma. You take a look at Cincinnati and Columbus and Toledo and Akron and Lorraine, and all these inner city schools are having a struggle, and it's not an education problem per se. You can't teach an empty chair. If the kid has severe absenteeism and shows up once every couple of weeks because he wants to get the lunch, and that's the only reason he's even there, you know, how do you and then when they are there, they're disrupted because they're in a classroom that they're way behind, and there's all sorts of problems. And they're most socioeconomic. You've got a plethora of kids in public school that don't have a dad. They're single-family homes, and I know that people have spoken out about that. But at the end of the day, I always tell people if they had John and Rita Patton as parents, like I did, if everybody had John and Rita Patton, it'd be a much better world. My mother's favorite 5 words were "wait till your father gets home," and we got religion real quick. And he would meet the teachers. He only went once a year. He was a police detective, and he had a real estate business too. So he was a busy man, but he made a point of going to see my teachers in grade school, and he would have you by the collars, his sister to the nuns.
Right.
If he gets out of line, whack him as hard as you can, and then call me.
Right.
And then he's really going to get it. And you know, but
Obviously, the school funding is a very multi-layer, complicated issue, from voucher conversations, and we're not going to debate that, but to the property tax. Like, from me to you, Superintendent Senator, what can we do in Brooklyn to be a better partner with our state legislators so that they understand some of the things that we're going through in the public schools, you know, and me and my colleagues in other districts? What can I do to partner with you or Representative Glassburn or anybody else at the state level to say, hey, this is what it looks like at the ground level here in our school district? What can we do to continue that partnership?
Well, I think, you know, always maintaining conversations. What we do know, at least what I know and I've experienced over the years, is that just like any other business, your cost to do business increase every year. I mean, your utility bills go up, your payroll I mean, the highest cost of any company is personnel.
Yeah, I mean, this is a general fact, but in Brooklyn, in most districts, about 75% of our cost goes towards our employees' salary and benefits, and that's typical to most school districts, and I'll have
79 is the average.
Yeah, right. We're about
So-
75, 76, somewhere around there, a little bit below. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the challenge is, well, one of the things, and to go a little bit different, is that we're trying to instruct parents, going through our teachers and our superintendents, to make sure that they're aware of the fact that if their kids don't go to college, they're not a failure. In China, this is going to sound absurd, but in China, after the end of 4th grade, the Chinese people make a decision if they go to 5th grade or they go to work in a factory. Right. There's no such thing as a late bloomer in China. Right. You know, but yet when we have, you know, Johnny Jump Shooter in 9th grade, he's always struggled with math. He's always had issues, maybe poor reading, maybe dyslexic, whatever. But he could take a cuckoo clock apart and put it back together again. In this world of AI, there's going to be a lot of accountants, a lot of engineers that might be put out of work. But building trades, and there's such a significant shortage, and these are 6-figure jobs.
Oh, they are.
You know,
yeah.
and if
you look at what's going around today, we have our renovation going on, and I think in what I've seen as an evolution in education, let's just say decade plus, career is the umbrella, and then how you get to that career. It could be college, could be safety forces, could be the military,
Sure.
could be the workforce, could be the trades, and I think that's an important evolution for school districts. You know, we no longer say it's college or bust, right? It is a multi-layered approach for us to make sure that our kids have options going into their post-secondary life, and I could not agree with you more. You look at the trades, electrician, carpentry, concrete,
sheet metal workers,
iron workers, whatever it may be, you know, and so in our district, we've tried the approach of career as the umbrella, and how we get there just depends. Let's switch gears a little bit. the governor's race is going to potentially be contested come this November. How do you think the governor's race and all the races going on in November, how do you see that impacting our state and really specifically to public education?
Well, I always think of political season as a silly season, because they're Pinocchio noses. They promise more than they realistically know that they can deliver. We now know we have Amy Acton and Vivek Ramaswamy, and Rose Ramaswamy is continuing that line of thinking we're gonna eventually eliminate the sales tax. We're gonna eventually eliminate or affect the property taxes, and we pretty much cut to the bone on income taxes. We brought it down to 2.5. When I took office 24 years ago, we had 9 brackets, and the top one was 9.11.
Yeah.
And over the years, we got rid of 7 of them, and so we had 325. And we had 275, and the decision was made. And candidly, I had second, third, and fourth thoughts about doing this because we were able to afford to do it this budget, but we have to be able to afford to do it in the next budget. Yeah. And I would have rather had a little historical proof that this is a tax cut we could sustain and maintain. But and it remains to be seen. But to go below 2.5 and you get rid of it, you figure for every 0.5%, okay, we've got 5 left. It's 1.6 billion.
Yeah.
So that's $9 billion right there.
That's a lot of money.
And so, in the same thing again, we've already talked about the 24 billion property tax. There's just no way to make it up. Yeah. So when people advertise and campaign on, I'm going to get rid of that. And just on the other hand, you've got the other candidate running who's talking about all these social services and stuff she's going to add and pay for and do this and that without coming up with any idea how it's going to get paid for, and it's the responsible, candidate that will sit back and say, what I'd like to do, I'd like to work in this area. There's no school, there's no classroom that you can go to be legislator 101. And figure out when you get there how you're going to do things. And everybody's got to be able to be 3 inches deep in virtually every subject, but you hope you have subject experts that you're working with, like I am now in the Senate. The last time I was in the Senate, we came up with the Jobs Ohio, which is a complex thing. And at the time, I said the only reason we were able to do it, we had the best law firm in Ohio, which was the Ohio Senate. Now, I'm not an attorney. I paid for my daughter Shannon to be one, so I take some credit for that. But no, but we have enough. It's a myriad of people that think that we go down there. First of all, they think maybe we're down there 5 days a week. We take 2 weeks off vacation like everybody else does. But we're there. I go down there Monday afternoon, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is election week, which is why we're here. We're not here.
Right.
Everybody's back home to make sure they voted for themselves. Actually, when I voted Tuesday, it was the first time since 2014 that I didn't have my name on the ballot, because on the 4-year term, 26 is off and won't be back till 28.
Well, congratulations, you'll be back, Nick.
It's there's a lot of factors, but the voters have been very, very kind. And it's been, whenever you can say that you're 10-0, but I always remind people that politics is a team sport. And every time I line up against some very, very quality opponents, I just always seem to have a better team. And as I say, I give credit to the voters. You knock on a lot of doors, you go to as many public forums as you can, and you make yourself visible. This was a great opportunity for your invitation. We jumped on it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Because Brooklyn's one of my newer cities.
Yeah.
I picked it up January of last year, and we've already established a good working relationship with the mayor. And
I remember meeting you at the grand opening of the new library there in Memphis. So yes. I do, yeah.
And and as I say, you just try to press the flesh. We, as I tell people, here's my cell phone on Facebook, which I'm the most shameless grandfather on Facebook. I'm always posting grandkid pictures. But if somebody asks me a political question on Facebook, I'll say I do not do political work on Facebook. But here is my cell phone. Call me right away, which means everybody on that stream. Is we can have or and I wish everybody had it. I'm in
Well,
the phone.
I do. As you guys begin your work, because obviously, we have the November elections, and then you have the lame duck session, and then depending on how the governor's race goes, could make next year's budget process quite eventful. And so, hopefully, as you're planning those things, you think of Brooklyn, and you prioritize the things we need. One question, and I'll tell you right now, this a question of concern that I'm hearing rumor wise, and I don't know how true it is, but starting to hear in our circles that potential conversations regarding what consolidation of local school districts looks like, and again, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I know in Brooklyn, we are a very proud community. One of our catchphrases is tradition, pride, and excellence, and I know the community of Brooklyn is very proud of our schools. Is consolidation something that is being looked at down at the state level of different school districts?
We have 614 school districts in Ohio, and there's some folks that think that's too many.
Sure.
Because that means there's 614 superintendents,
Right.
any number of
Treasurers,
principals and
yeah,
treasurers
sure.
and so on. But
Yeah.
I've always believed where there can be collaboration, like we take a look at Parma Heights, Seven Hills. We take a look at, these are all in my district.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Middlebrook Heights
Berea.
and Brookhart and Berea.
Right.
And those have been around, forever.
Traditionally
And they
forever,
have been,
yes.
but you take a school district, like who, for example, would Brooklyn go with as an example?
I don't know.
Brooklyn
That-
is,
yeah.
it's a niche community.
Yeah.
It's a proud community. And I would always fight to make sure that, as long as the town and the voters support the district, it's, I just saw where, I think last night on the news, I was looking at, I think in Boardman, it was in, it was a school that I know Betsy Kling went to, but anyway, now they've got to lay off 80 people. It's like, and that community obviously doesn't believe in the, it's like a politician. They don't believe in what you're doing. They're going
And
to
you know
replace you.
this, and you see the levy results. Our community is supportive of renewal levies. They were supportive 2 years ago of this bond issue that is allowing the renovation of our amazing complex, and so that makes me feel better as a superintendent because
Yes.
I know what the reaction of Brooklyn would be if there was talk of consolidation of us with somebody else, whatever that looks like.
But there's a reason for that.
Right.
The reason is the fact that you have the results to prove it. You're
We do.
graduating your kids are going out in the workforce. There's no major scandals. There's, the kids show up at school. The teachers have, great opportunities to impact. I've always, one of my daughters is a high school English teacher, and I always tell her I'm jealous because, we all have that one teacher that told us one thing that has stayed with us the whole rest of our life. How many people have that opportunity to have that kind of an impact on a young mind, and it's so, the community believes in you. It's a partnership, obviously.
Absolutely, and we got a great partnership with our mayor. We have a great partnership with our city council, obviously our residents. So that thank you. That makes me feel really good as a superintendent. Last question I have for you, and first of all, thank you for doing this. I know some of these things aren't easy, and like I said, it's my way of outreaching with you and everybody else just to say, hey, we're partners in this, right? We may sometimes have philosophical differences, but we are absolutely partners in our community and with our kids and our staff and our residents. Why did you feel this was important to do this podcast?
Again, every opportunity I have to get out and meet with the folks, to be able to answer questions. Right now, my current mission is trying to remind people that although that idea of eliminating a property tax sounds great, you got to pay the fiddler. You want to have a police department respond to a guy crawling in your window. You want to have a fire department come out. You want to have your schools maintain the quality like they do in Brooklyn. You want to make sure that the library. I've talked to Brian Zimmerman at the library. At the Metro Parks, and he told me if this passes in November, he closes the doors at the end of February, padlocks the Metro Parks, and probably starts selling off the animals, and the zoo is closed.
Oh, wow.
Because they're 100%
funded by
by the property taxes. And so these are the things people aren't thinking about. But again, for example, we had a mayor of North Royalton last week He retired, medical issues, and we wish him all the best. And Paul Marnichek, the council president, was sworn in, and he wanted to get sworn in at 12:01 as soon as the clock turned to May 1st. And there was a couple hundred people. It was a very nice trial for midnight. But I was there, and I again, we got there about 11:30, was able to kind of talk to the different people. I was reminding him, I said, it's been a very long time since I climbed in the car at 11:30 at night.
Right.
And I knew probably when I did that, it wasn't for a really good reason. But, anytime you get a group together, I love to go to the Eagle Scout Courts of Honor.
Right.
These are young men that 2%, take 100 kids, put them in a room and say 98 leave and see how, and then that kind of is the visual on it. But, this is such a major accomplishment, and I think the scout leaders in Northeast will tell you that if I'm invited, I'm there, because again, you're meeting the neighbors, you're meeting the family, you're shaking hands, and you're talking, and generally speaking, it's not that everybody has questions, but if they see you, and they know that, you're not three-dimensional, you can be reached out and touched. And that's why I say on my business cards, here's my cell phone. I especially say, if you got any good ideas for legislation, let me know. Because,
well, we'll send them your way for sure.
It is. It's just, it's, again, I think the product of coming from a big family like I do, and is the idea that you just learn to communicate, share ideas. You could share your clothes with your older brothers, but
Right.
you can also share ideas with your friends and your colleagues and your constituents.
Well, next March we are going to be opening up our new Performing Arts Center, and you will be one of our first invites to come here and celebrate with us. Senator, it has been an absolute honor. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's been a busy week for you, and as you get through summer, it's going to continue to be busy, but we appreciate the work you do for Brooklyn, appreciate your advocacy for Brooklyn City Schools. Please know that you have a friend and a ally over here with us. We hope to continue this conversation. Thank you for being here.
Ted, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And, Brooklyn doesn't know how lucky they are to have you sitting in that seat that you are.
I appreciate you
You've done a
saying
great
that.
job for 7 years, and I hope we have you for another 20.
Well, I appreciate that. This has been the latest episode of the Hurricane Watch podcast. This is Dr. Ted Caleris. Thank you. Have a great day.